I think it's it's really interesting how I can integrate our interview with the music that I'm performing, right?
Mm.
Here's a piece of music that's it's just a little background on the music. It's based on a traditional Chinese tale. It's a love story, right? So you have this woman who fell in love with this man, but she was actually dressed in man's clothing, right?
Hmm.
So it's almost like a Chinese version of Romeo and Juliet,
Yeah.
um, and it's a forbidden love story, and at the end of the story, they both committed suicide by jumping into a well,
Hmm.
uh, and then they resurrected, by becoming a pair of butterflies and just fly out of the well and fly away. Um,
That's beautiful.
so so it's really one of those combinations. We're talking about the COVID-19 related personal experiences, and we're trying to mix this experience with this kind of music. Um,
Hmm.
so I think it's a very unique and unconventional combination,
Hmm.
uh, and and we probably don't know how they actually relate, but
Hmm.
like I said in my letter, this project, or the evolution of this project is really for me to put this music in the context of the current pandemic, crisis that the world is facing,
Hmm.
uh, as a way of reconciliation, right? So you have this, Chinese traditional music transcribed on a piano, for the piano, and then you have some, very, unique and powerful experience like the one that you shared about, you know, minorities and minority, equality and equity,
Hmm.
uh, during this crisis. So I think it's definitely a very interesting blend.
Hmm.
And I don't know if people will immediately understand the purpose, but I think it's worth doing.
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
know if people can immediately pick up the message,
Hmm.
um, but I think if they listen carefully, they should be able to.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think so.
yeah. So we're part of the Phillips Brooks House, and the mission of PBH, it's to serve the community, right? Especially during this crisis, we try to keep the shelter open. We're doing a lot of community outreach. We're still trying our best to conduct our summer programs, even though some of that is remote. Um, how does that make you feel? Like, you work for an organization whose core mission is to care about the community, doing services for the community, and obviously trying to get Harvard students, undergraduate students, to engage in civic engagement and serve our broader community. How
It's,
so? How do you feel about that? Uh,
it's something I'm really proud of because I guess in part to link it to my experience out of Ogletree's office is that like my experience of community inclusion and belonging at Harvard happened particularly with the relationships and my work experience in his office to begin with. And PBH is a place that's similar where um, I think the work that we do there helps to generate the kind of community on campus, especially. So bracketing for the moment the work that actually happens out in the surrounding communities, but the community that is created right on campus, I think PBH is one of those places where you find deeply meaningful communities, largely, I think, because we're an unusually diverse place on campus. I've been here a long time. There are not many places on campus where you see as many different shades of people, so to speak, as you see in at PBH. It's one thing I'm really proud of, and I think that the reason that you see that kind of diversity and kind of where people feel like they deeply belong to something there is because folks they feel like themselves in the building. And I know that at times PBH can be criticized for seeming, I don't know, maybe a little eccentric's not quite the word, but I'll go with the eccentric. But I think that's because when people are there, they're allowed to be themselves, and so it comes out in different ways. And it's, I don't know, I think it's a rare thing on campus. I put it this way. I have not spent a lot of time in many places on campus where you have a lot of diverse people that can all kind of report the same type of things. That this is one of those places where I can feel like myself. So I don't feel like I need to censor my thoughts. I don't feel like I need to behave a certain way because of who else is in the room. I can be myself, and people are okay with that.
Yeah.
I would say more than anything else, that's what makes PBH a special place. Now, on top of that, an added benefit, I think, is that, or even a consequence of it, is that you have people there that are deeply committed to the same things, and they're very good at what they do, and they're very, I guess if you could, not only are they incredibly talented, but if I could put it this way, I think the skills that they bring to PBH even exceeds their commitment. It's a lot of people that are very talented, and they happen to have their, I would say, I guess, their priorities in order. They know what's important. They know kind of what needs to be done, and they make it happen. And it's a thing that I'm really proud to be a part of, and I think Harvard should be proud of it too, because, like I say, I've been here a long time, and there's not many places I would describe as special, but PBH is one of them. Ogletree's office is one of them. The Houston Institute is one of them. After those three, I start to run out of examples quickly. That's not to say there aren't other special places here, but what I mean, particularly what I mean by special, is that combination of kind of inclusion and belonging to a degree that I've just not seen in many places. And I'm so happy to be a part of it for that reason, because I'd like to be able, and I work with students, I'm always up for talking about problems that folks are having. So what I find even more powerful is when you find those spaces where folks just kind of purely out of joy can say things like, I like being here. I can be myself. I feel comfortable here. There's no need to explain yourself or to explain an idea or something like that. You can just be yourself. And I know that may sound kind of corny, but it's I think it's really special, and it's one of the things I love about kind of PBH as a department, but especially about the people that are there. Because without the people, the department, I guess, is meaningless. It's the people who I'm talking about. So Maria, Kate, Travis, Julie, Flavia, you. It's like all these people that are in the building, the DOPs, make it such a special place. And it's a rare thing to find that I'm so happy to be a part of it. I guess in terms of COVID-19, like particularly when the pandemic started to heat up, when it became really clear that this is going to be a major problem. One of the first questions I was thinking to myself was like, I wonder what this means for something like SUP, a very important program but it didn't really strike me as something to be worried about, because I had no doubt that Maria and Kate and kind of other folks involved in those conversations were going to find out a way to deliver services to the communities that we serve. It was more of a question of how it was going to be done, but it wasn't fear that, oh, we're going to have to just shut down and we're not going to be able to follow through on some of these parts of the PBH mission. That was never really a concern, just because I knew they would find a way to get it done. And so I wasn't surprised when it came to find out that yes, they're going to be launching a kind of this online platform to have these services. It was, I think I'm kind of rambling, but it was, it's one of those places where kind of values align with like really good values, not just values, but like the right values come together with a group of talented folks who have been able to create something that's very special, and at least in my experience is rare on campus. So I think in that sense it lines up with some of these themes, because I think one of the things that the COVID-19 pandemic teaches us, I mean, one of the reasons it's so bad in the U.S., I think, is because it's not so. One of the reasons I think it's so bad in the U.S. is because the pandemic has been able to leverage weaknesses, like social weaknesses that are already there. It's been able to exploit them, and well, I think that's a community question. So it's not just like public health and kind of all those other important things that conversations folks need to be having, but I think it's a community question in the sense that it's been able to leverage these kind of social weaknesses that we have. These are failures, like community failures, that have been made all the more explicit because of the pandemic. So you see these stories in many ways. So I think these are all community questions, I think.
Yeah.
So to be someplace on campus that is really good at community, it's special. So it's one of the things, and it's probably the number one thing that appeals to me about the Phillips Brooks House, is that they've been able to build community there, and I think it's because of the people that have been there over the years. They've been able to create something special and to sustain it. And it's one of the, at least in my experience at Harvard, it's one of the bright spots.
As a minority myself, I understand that sense of belonging. So what do you see in the future? I mean, do you ever think about like what the world will be like when this pandemic is over? I mean, are you optimistic about what's going to happen?
No, it's well, I try to be hopeful, but I think I may tend towards some pessimism on some of these types of things, just because historically I don't, for example, I don't see the U.S. government, for example, making an extraordinary effort to try to address COVID-19 in under-resourced neighborhoods, for example. So my expectation is that folks from those communities are going to continue to struggle more than they should have to, whatever that means. I don't want to say people should suffer some degree, but just they're going to suffer unnecessarily. And we know that, but it seems not to be enough for us as a country to try to get ahead of it. And so I guess I kind of have an outlook that kind of aligns with something like that, where I hope for the best, but I'm not expecting kind of extraordinary efforts to be put in kind of shoring up some of these things that we can anticipate are going to be problems. So I guess in terms of moving forward, like whenever we start to get back to something like normal, one of my concerns already is going to be, well, if we have 30 million people that are unemployed, I think as of this week, at what point does public sentiment shift to be from being kind of compassionate, like this is unacceptable, there's 30 million people unemployed, we need to have resources in place so folks can keep their heads above water. At what point does that shift, and then people are being blamed for not doing enough to secure other work or something like that? It's I worry about those types of things is valid, and that gets exhausting. In part, I think it means that the kind of work that happens at places like PBH just become that much more important, because in those types of spaces you have folks that understand the truth of the matter. You know, they're beyond having to you need to demonstrate to them what the argument is, or to convince them that that certain action is needed. They already get it. And I think that what the pandemic is going to do is it's going to make that work all the more important and urgent, because there are going to be more people in need. And so the work to be done will be greater than ever and more important than ever. Certainly, and by ever I mean in the history of the 100-year history of PBH. So I think there'll be great opportunities there in terms of trying to reach more people, to do more of the work that the folks there already do. So in that sense, I'm hopeful, because there's lots of community partners that are doing this kind of work. I think they'll be needed more than ever, and I'm sure those folks will be right there ready to do everything they can to support those folks. So I think that's hopeful. Unfortunately, I just think that it's a shame that there's not more resources available for that work. I guess I'm always just a little saddened by. I guess a lot of people will probably say it's a naive question, but when kind of that first maybe I think it was the second aid package that was passed, the $2.2 trillion package in response to the pandemic. You know, one of the thoughts that I had initially was like, well, we clearly needed an extraordinary response, so I guess good that they were able to get something like that passed, such that politicians are forced to deal with it.
Yes, I mean, those are very important questions, and it's really hard to find a solution. I mean, you have almost unprecedented wealth gap, inequality in this country now than ever. And so basically, you know, it seems like you are pessimistic, and there's really no clear reconciliation when we come out of this pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I guess if the pessimism, I think, would be more directed at kind of, I guess, folks in control, I guess, like the government. What I guess the hope that I have is that organizations like the Phillips Brooks House exist. And I know that people there and people at similar organizations are going to be doing everything they can every day to be as much of a positive force